Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Simply Nerdy. This is Anthony hosting today, and I'm joined by Austin and David. And today we wanted to give an impressions video of our experience with The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom so far. Basically, strong-armed my way into hosting this one because I have a lot of good things to say so far, and I've been thoroughly enjoying my time with it. And anyway, we all just kind of wanted to share our thoughts and our current perspectives early on in the game. Just a couple things that I can just throw out from the start. One thing I will say is that I think this is probably it's quickly becoming one of my favorite top-down Zelda entries. You know, that's honestly kind of a shocking thing for almost me to hear myself saying, because it's got quite the pantheon of games to compete with, but just the way that they've really approached the creativity while also combining it with the more traditional structure of historical Zelda games. It's so far they've done an excellent job. Just like I said, just a couple quick thoughts. One of my favorite things, so this is something that's it's a big plus for me as far as impressions are, they didn't make me play the game and beat it before I could unlock hero mode. That's a big deal for me. I'm one of those crazies who sees challenge as a feature and something that can improve a game, and so I switched it straight over to hero mode, and I think I've probably seen more game over screens playing this game for the few hours I have than basically the rest of the Zelda series combined.
Yeah,
except for Zelda 2.
Yeah, Zelda 2 is a whole nother beast.
Zelda 2, that's a whole different story.
But yeah, a lot of one-hit KOs for me in this game, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, there's some enemies, and I'm just shocked. I'm like, dude, I think that thing just did 6 hearts on me. That's how many I have. So pretty nuts.
The game doesn't advertise hero mode, so I wouldn't have known to switch that over if that was something when the game was before it was released. We're like, oh, apparently there's a hero mode, but you probably have to beat the game first, right? So we had to Google how to do it, and but I'm glad I switched over too. I agree with you. Like, this is with hero mode. This has been like the most challenging Zelda game I've played, I think.
Yeah, I gotta love the challenge. I love the unique monsters that they bring that allow you to also have echoes. It adds to the complexity of the battle mechanics as well, being able to create echoes of monsters and find unique ways to approach a battle. But I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that kind of contributes well to the challenge in the game, is that, I mean, you can't just do the standard approach to, solving a conflict. You kind of have to think of more puzzle-solving ways to, approach either a battle or, or even just a standard platforming challenge. There's just a lot of different things you have to approach very differently. It makes you think very creatively, and there've been a lot of times when, I'll realize how I can solve something, and it's just really enjoyable. And that's in terms of combat as well as just traditional puzzle solving. So yeah, no, I really like how it has a lot of different ways to make you think outside the box. It's almost how I would describe the design methodology behind the game. Yeah, I just think they did a really good job.
And to add to that, Anthony, it's you not only have to think outside the box, but there are a myriad of ways in which those puzzles and battles can be solved. And that was something that I found that was really unique and fun. It's almost like they're taking Tears of the Kingdom, which is a phenomenal game, and even though this is a top-down approach with a much simpler physics engine, it plays like Tears of the Kingdom, and I really love that.
Yeah,
that's my impressions too. I feel like I'm getting classic top-down Zelda and Tears of the Kingdom in the same game.
Yeah,
that seems kind of magical to me. That I'm getting that classic, classic Zelda dungeon experience. It's nostalgic to go back to that. I don't feel like it's sacrificed everything new that they've innovated to the series. I'm also getting that same feeling I get exploring, the world in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. And so it's been very impressive to me, that feeling of like, I want to explore more, that one more discovery, I can get up here. I can see that area and I can reach it if I use these echoes creatively, platforming and anything else. And
Mhm.
have those two elements both in the same game, and to for them to complement each other so well. That's been a surprise.
A very
So,
pleasant one, yeah. Because I know. Sorry,
go ahead,
hold that thought.
Anthony.
I'll just say one thing I know that a lot of people have been complaining about is a lot of people have been saying, oh, I just feel like they've thrown out the old formula and this is not my Zelda anymore, and I find that a little bit sad because honestly I don't see why we need to have them separate. And if they did do that, if they had like games for the traditional Zelda, the people who prefer that, and then some of the more Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom style offerings, I guess I could live with that. But I like how this game is proof that they can coexist. Within the same game, it feels the most traditional of any of the more recent Zelda games that we've seen in a long time, but it's also one of the most creative. I mean, I guess you probably can't outdo the type of stuff you can do with Ultra Hand and Tears of the Kingdom, but this is a pretty close runner-up.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree that I think that it's nice that they have found a balance to both approaches. They have kind of an open world style, but also the classic dungeons. Some of the items where they can gonna kind of gatekeep the player in some aspects, but not in other aspects, such as traversing the terrain. I think that that's something that they've completely left open to the player, which is great. And then I was also going to add on top of that, one of the other things that I really enjoy is the story approach that they're doing with this, which is, of course, being Zelda being the protagonist is something that we're seeing with other games too. They did Peach's Showtime or whatever it's called. It's a nice, refreshing thing to see because it's not a game where Zelda is going in and the whole objective is to save Link. That the goal isn't necessarily to save Link, it's to save Hyrule. It's to go through the still world and fix all these rifts that are appearing. Helping Link and discovering who Link is all kind of part of almost the side part of the journey that Zelda has to do, but that's not necessarily her main objective. But it is cool to see, hey, everywhere we go, Link is there. We're kind of chasing him down. Go ahead, David.
Agree with you about the story. Like, it's not just where they put a Zelda skin on Link. Genuinely the story is about her. I've been super charmed by it. Like, there's been several moments where I'm just like smiling. Like, this is Zelda getting her own adventure. And having it be genuinely great. The twist, a twist from what you normally get from Zelda.
Yeah, and even the mechanics of with the Triwand and everything just feels different enough from Link that it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't just feel like a mask. It's not just a skin. Although they have introduced ways to keep it familiar, where she has the swordfighter form that so you can play like Link at least for a little bit, but she still feels like her own character.
I have to say, I like that it's a temporary ability.
Mm-hmm.
A limited gauge. You use it more strategically. You can't just like turn it on and now I'm going to play the entire game as though I'm Link.
Right. Well, and that would have completely hamstrung the game from a design perspective if they had made that possible. That meter is specifically the entire reason that it can be a feature rather than a game breaker.
Yep.
But I agree. I really like that implementation because there's times when some challenges where I'm like, I almost always try to solve it with the echoes, and of course the meter kind of forces that to some degree. But there are times when I'm like, I just want to be able to whack this thing, and so I just hop into swordfighter mode, do a few swipes, and then pop out. I thought it was really well done. Anyway, I interrupted you, David, but go ahead.
So no, you basically continued what I was thinking perfectly. So I love that the gauge is there because it forces me to think more creatively, more strategically, and so it just turns out just an extra tool that you can use. But they've implemented a way that won't break the game. So that's one thing I've loved about it.
Yeah, it's a very nice way to balance it, I think.
One thing I wanted to say with these impressions of the echoes, like the ecosystem is just fun and unique. I can't think of another game that uses a system like this at the top of my head. So it's been a lot of fun. I know that people have complaints about how you select echoes, especially considering there's so many in the game.
Yep.
You have that little quick menu you can bring up. And, I've watched a video that actually helped me out a lot. Like a game explain video where they said, okay, this menu kind of sucks, but you can use this button, you can use the L button instead of the D-pad. Bring up the menu.
Yeah, I've always used the L button. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I don't even remember if I feel like the game pushed me towards the D-pad. So I don't remember if it gave both options, but the L button is much more convenient. And then they also said you can just push plus and go into like the full menu.
Yeah,
it's easier. You don't have to scroll through everything.
Yeah, which was similar to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But I do have to say it is kind of annoying. And from all the games, even Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I did not like the endless scrolling that I had to do to find items sometimes. I know you could categorize it or sort it by type or whatever, but it still was not the most cleverly engineered HUD, or user experience. But other
frustrations, but I have to admit I've kind of gotten used to it, especially with some of those that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Where like if I know that the echo I want is not going to be top of the list in that huge scrolling list, then I'll go into plus and find it there, and I also find that as I get more echoes, I do usually want to use the latest or the most used. Those are some of the sorting options they give you. If I use those, then I often don't have to do that much scrolling. Because I'm like, I'm not going to scroll to go find one of the first echoes I found in the game. It's not a great implementation, but it's not destroying the game for me. I've found ways to work around it, I guess.
I was going to say, what doesn't have a workaround is the experience-shattering FPS drops that we've been having with this game. It's kind of the elephant in the room, so I just wanted to address it now. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I want to give my thoughts real fast. So before this game, I played an indie game that had quite a few. Well, I played Sea of Stars and I loved it. For some reason, my experience with it had quite a few FPS drops. I was disappointed with that, but maybe having that right before this game, I was already used to playing something and having FPS drops. So I'm just kind of desensitized to it now. I don't know. But it also helps for me knowing that there's nowhere else I can play this. This is the place. The Switch is where I can play it, and I just, if I was thinking, oh, I could have another console I could play this on where it would have better performance, maybe I'd be more frustrated. But
the Switch too.
Maybe.
There's always the potential.
Yeah, maybe. But so I found that I'm not like that shaken up over the performance, and that's okay if other people are. But it's like, this is the only place I can play this game, and I value the other things I'm getting from it enough that it's not ruining the game for me. It's disappointing, but
I'm optimistic that Nintendo will address it with an update, some kind of a software patch to mitigate those issues. But I think that the honest truth is, right now for me, it is kind of jarring, and it takes me out of that experience because it's so frequent. It's not enough that I hate the game. Like, I don't feel like the shortcoming of the FPS drops overshadow the game's remarkable qualities, but I just feel like it the way I was explaining it to a friend is it dips worse than my rank in competitive Apex after a sleep-deprived late-night grind. So it's just, it does feel quite jarring. And if they hard locked it at 30 frames per second, and I think Anthony and I have had this discussion, I think that it would be less jarring and we'd be able to withstand it. But who knows?
I mean, you're basically taking all the things I was going to say. But no, yeah, I will say this. So Link's Awakening also was known for its frame drops, but it was conservative compared to Echoes of Wisdom. I mean, it ran mostly at 60 FPS, but had regular drops. And that was kind of, it bothered me for a while until I eventually got used to it. But Echoes of Wisdom is more of the opposite. The 60 frames per second moments are the rare ones.
Mhm.
Those are very rare, at least in docked mode.
I was just about to say in docked mode. Yeah.
Handheld, I've noticed it still dropping frames semi regularly, but it's somehow just not nearly as bad. That being said, I think it is kind of funny that, because it seems like it's something that would be very easily solved by, like Austin said, just a frame lock. Give me the option to cut out 60 frames per second, period. Just make it so it's always 30.
Cap it. Yeah.
Cap it right there. The game would actually probably run a whole lot more smoothly. And you know what? I don't care about absolute frame rate. I care about frame stability.
Yep.
This game is unstable as water in a hurricane. I mean, it's ridiculous. Again, not enough to ruin my experience, but I will say, every time I think about playing this game, I'm like, oh, hold on, I better make sure I've got enough battery, because there's no way I'm playing this dock.
Well, I better try that out. I better try handheld mode, because I've only been playing it docked, especially because I either like to play it on the TV where my my 3-year-old, unfortunately my 1-year-old doesn't have the capacity or the ability to really focus on it, but my 3-year-old certainly enjoys watching me play. But otherwise, I'm either recording or streaming or doing something where it requires it to be in docked mode. So
yeah, handheld, it's a lot better. It is.
Note to anyone who's listening that wants to give it a shot, try it out in handheld mode, see if that helps with the issues.
But that being said, they could still easily fix it for both modes by just putting it at 30. Because there have been a couple times. There was an area I recently did. I won't name it for spoilers' sake, but it was a little bit more busy in terms of some of the effects it was trying to render on screen. And it got to the point where it was dropping frames so often that it actually spent some rather extended periods at probably closer to 30. And it stayed there long enough that it started to feel smooth. I'm just like, okay, cool. Yep. Look, this is a playable game now. And then the moment I talk to someone, it goes and goes straight to 60. And I'm like, okay, gosh.
Yeah.
So it's very distracting.
Whiplash effect. Yeah.
So please, Nintendo, just give me the option. I've looked several times, even in the same menu. I'm like, no, maybe there's something I missed. Give me the option to lock it at 30, and you've removed my biggest complaint. There's almost nothing else for me to complain about. I will say, the only reason I'll say almost is just because I also feel the same way about kind of the filtering options for echo selection. Mm-hmm. Like David, it doesn't bother me enough to take away my enjoyment. But there are times when I'm like, oh, where did that one go? I swear it was in my most recently used list, and it's not there. And anyway, that's a little frustrating. I think that they could easily solve that too, though, by just making it so you can create your own filters. Some filters I'd put in right away would be things like melee, ranged, airborne, water friendly, high synergy. I mean, just and don't have it be just filters in terms of the ordering of what's shown in the list. Let me make it so that it only has some entries. Like if I do melee and I only want it to be 5 entries long, I want to have that option, because then I don't have to scroll through the whole thing every time. If they were just to make that simple option of saying, okay, you make your own lists. When you're selecting which ones to filter by, you could turn it into a simple drop down in the quick select menu. You just hold Y and then select which one you want to filter by, and then it will pop that in, and suddenly it's super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Or for goodness sake, just use more real estate of the screen, Nintendo. Add a whole nother... just like the Game Explained video, I think we watched the same one, David, when it first released. Is you have 2, at least, maybe 3 rows that you could add to just speed up that process, or a radial menu or something. But
another thought that I thought would be a simple, if I can't remember if ZR does anything yet, but if you held that and then you could use the face buttons as like presets, that would be kind of a maybe you have 4 echoes that are your favorites, and you're like, okay, VR plus Y equals this echo.
Mm-hmm.
That was just something I thought, old Zelda games had things like this where you had certain buttons were assigned and you could change the assignment, right? Okay, it's going to be sword. Link's Awakening might have even been this way. Doing something like that where you hold down a button, ZR plus for face button, and you can just have these set echoes of your choice. Might be like I'm always going to want to summon this guy, so quick
Yeah.
and that echo's summoned. So I don't know. Just the thought I had.
No,
No,
I like that.
I like that idea a lot. Yeah, I think even if they weren't to do something quite as involved as that, though, it seems like there's some very simple solutions they could present with their existing systems to make it a lot more workable. I mean, even if they stick with their one-dimensional scrolling menu, there's still ways they could make it a lot more user-friendly. But I would love that idea too, David. Have just mappable buttons. I was thinking at first when you said ZR, I'm like, oh no, that's how you cancel your echoes. But then I was like, well, you hold the button down, so maybe they could make it context specific. If you press it and then quickly press a face button, then maybe it would cast an echo instead. There's
Or
options.
just use L instead of keep the D-pad the same, but then use L to do some macro custom setup. I don't know.
Oh, that's an idea. Yeah.
So there's solutions, but
that being said, this is Nintendo. They have they're notorious for having easy fixes that they never apply. So I'm not expecting any of this to ever change. So that being said, with that in mind, I will still say it's fast becoming one of my favorite top-down Zeldas, and that it's almost sad that they don't fix those problems, because then I would be able to say that with a lot less reservation.
mm-hmm.
But once again, they're minor concerns when you compare it to the overall quality of the package, and I'm thoroughly impressed. I think it's a tribute to Zelda as a character that she's getting this solid of an adventure for her first real outing. And yes, I am not including the Philips CDI games
No.
for reasons I need not state.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a really good job giving her a solid game for her first time in the spotlight, and they gave her own identity. I thought that was something really nice too, because I know a lot of people have been calling for basically a female Link approach, or like Zelda but in a role similar to Link. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
why
I'm really glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, why? I like having them be have their own strengths. Zelda is a strong character, as made clear by this game, but in different ways that make her unique, and I like that.
Yep. It's a real charming game. It's very, very well done. Aside from the minor quality of life improvements that they could make, it's the game.
And that they could make today. They could make it today.
Yeah.
I mean, heavens, I could probably find a way to program it for them. Just you don't even need to pay me. Just let me put it in the game.
Right.
I have to say that's one contrast. I love Nintendo because of their games. Some of their business stuff is frustrating, and so having recently played Sea of Stars, they're actually doing this isn't Nintendo, this is indie. Sea of Stars, the contrast. They're doing an update in November, I think, and they took every fan feedback possible and addressed it. I was watching their update video. They're like, oh, fans said this ability was broken. You don't get to use this enough, and they balanced everything, reworked, and I wish Nintendo would do this sometimes, but this is what fans want, and then they have a good idea, so let's try it, but it's not typically how Nintendo does. So I'm not expecting that kind of update for Echoes of Wisdom, but in spite of it, I agree with Anthony that I'm having a great time with it. Do we think Switch 2, whenever that happens, will it have if it's backwards compatible, maybe that will fix the performance of this game.
One's can hope.
Possibility. Yeah, it's a possibility. Just depends on how they engineer it, if it can. If they choose to take care of those optimizations or not. But
I know some people that are like, I'm not going to buy Echoes of Wisdom until I know if Switch 2 is backwards compatible. And maybe it's fair for them to wait. Maybe they'll be able to play it without any performance problems.
Yeah. For those of us here, though, chances are we'll have all beaten it by the time we find out. And honestly, just given Nintendo's track record of being forthcoming with their fans, I'm fully expecting to not find out anything until all three of us have beaten the game. That is when they will announce it, because otherwise it will never get announced. That's the thing, you see. Or if we wait, then they'll be like, "Oh, we delayed it until 2026." For the Switch 2. I mean, it's just anyway. I know I'm being facetious. At this point, basically, I think this is how I'd summarize our thoughts as far as a preview is concerned. This game is so good that it's worth playing despite some of its glaring flaws. Glaring only in the sense of they're very noticeable, not necessarily that they break the game for being there. It's very worth playing. We're all very very pleased so far. It's just charming, enjoyable. It's well made in most respects, and I for one am very excited to see what I guess more ways that they can surprise me, because it's been very pleasant so far.
Yeah,
so
looking forward to playing more. Yeah, I agree. Definitely recommend it.
Looking forward to probably in the next few weeks doing a full review.
Yep.
Here on the channel. Because I don't think it's an ultra long game, so I think we'll probably finish it before the end of the year, and it'll be fun to be able to talk freely and spoilery about some of the cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you want to wrap it up?
Anything else you guys want to say before we call it?
Nope, I think that's good for me.
Okay, sounds good.
I think going into more would be spoilery, I think, so keep it simple this time.
Yeah,
we'll cut it there. So thank you very much for joining us for this discussion, this preview discussion. And if you've had the chance to pick it up and try it out yourselves, leave a comment to let us know what you thought. And if you agree that it's been an enjoyable experience, or if some of those more niggling issues have turned into a bigger deal for you, be very curious to hear everyone's thoughts. And also whether or not you like the direction that Zelda is going as represented by this latest game. But yeah, I think it's got a bright future, and I'm hopeful we'll just see more and more good things from the series. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That always helps us with our visibility and makes us, have the feel goods inside, that we do all these recordings and then, get people watching. So thank you in advance for anyone who does. And until next time. Keep it nerdy.
Keep it nerdy.